On today's Breaking Views, Credit Suisse checks out of the capital doghouse. And hurrah, the Eurozone economy is almost stagnant. Robert Cole, Reuters Breaking Views assistant editor, joins me now. Robert, let's start with Credit Suisse. They've just had their Q2 earnings out, better than expected. Capital's being rebuilt. The report looks pretty healthy. There must be a chink in the armour somewhere.
Well, there are some issues that it has to tackle, but I think we should, for a moment, just say that, you know, let's sort of hand some credit where credit is due. You may recall...
No pun intended.
Very, very good. You may recall that a year ago or so, the Swiss regulator said some pretty pointed things about Credit Suisse's capital position and whether it would be able to meet these new regulations, the Basel III regulations on that. And it's done that. It seems to have repaired its balance sheet and is looking in pretty good shape. So yes, meeting and perhaps even slightly exceeding expectations, although I think the shares were down a bit today, so perhaps there's some sort of disappointment that they didn't do better than might have been expected. But I think the first thing to say is, look, this bank has done itself quite a lot of favours by working hard to get itself into a decent capital position.
But you think, though, at Breaking Views, that there may be some issues if interest rates were to rise, and the bank might not be able to withstand that?
I suppose it's one thing to say hats off to Credit Suisse for repairing or just stabilising the position. But it's quite another to say, well, in what kind of state is it to compete into the future? And that's its challenge, and that is a great challenge. Absolutely no room for complacency at all. Now, on one level, rising interest rates, and that seems to be what we're going to get, does some favours for banks, doesn't it? Because it may attract more money into these stable kind of deposits. They may be able to make a greater margin on the amounts that they pay out. But at the same time, it changes the competitive dynamics of this. And while it might be good for Credit Suisse, it might be even better for somebody else who plays that market more effectively. And there's also that kind of volatility that the changing interest rate environment brings, and that means that companies may go down, or so. It's hardly a time for three cheers, but certainly a couple maybe.
Well, a couple of cheers for the Eurozone economy. You can't argue with some of the numbers. The PMIs from Germany, the Eurozone yesterday, the IFO today, Spanish unemployment even falling for the first time in years. You can't argue with them.
Well, I think you can. No, I think you can argue with them actually. I think lots of people will be, and the point we're trying to make here is that there will be a great body of opinion which is saying, well, come on, the PMI data is up, 1/10 of a percentage point, perhaps just about struggling into that more than 50% mark, which says that GDP is, on the right course. Yes, Spain, there is some good news, but really only in comparison with, some really rank, awful news that seems. Well, and that's the point we're making here. And there's a lovely line in this piece by Edward Haddis, which is, I think it says something like, even a 3/4 empty glass leaves investors something to drink, which is quite a nice way of doing it. Let's not overstate it. So yes, basically I'm with your opening gambit there, which is that yes, hopefully we are turning the corner, and hopefully things might get better. But the other point here is that we've got to remember that the Eurozone is a very large and very powerful economy, and that's one of the reasons to be relatively optimistic about it. But it's also an ageing one, and it has competition obviously from America and from the emerging markets. So it would be wrong to expect gangbuster growth. They're complaining, aren't they, in China about 6-7% growth being not enough. Well, that's not going to happen here. Maybe sort of 1-2% growth is as good as it gets.
On this summer day, Rob, there's no chance of confusing you with a ray of sunshine, is there?
Well, I don't know. I think I characterise myself as the eternal bull, actually. And at the end of the day, going to put a decently positive spin on these numbers, but set it in the context, which is the past was very bad, and actually the future, even if it's quite good, might, to our tested benchmarks, if you like, or traditional benchmarks, be quite unexciting.
It's called the new normal, I think.
I think that's right.
Rob, thanks very much. That was Breaking Views' Robert Cole. And for more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 BST. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.